the YouTube channel. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for the Observatory Heights Neighborhood Update. I am Marcus Pockner. I will be facilitating the discussion tonight. We have two other presenters that are going to go through some updated material on Observatory Heights. One thing I want to say before we get started tonight, we've got a great crowd that is joining us. More people are adding in. I keep looking down at my bottom of my screen to see participants come on. We will save as much time as possible as we need for the Q&A at the end of the meeting. We thought it was important to come back to your neighborhood and talk specifically about the two parcels to the north and the south of Bradburn to address kind of issues that you may have heard, any rumors, any questions that are out there. There was a few things that we've heard in the last week or two. We thought it was really important to update them. I think secondly, we wanted to talk about the roadway connection at LaPlace Court. We have had ongoing discussions. We'll have our engineer talk about that in more detail, but this is something that we have spent a lot of time with the city and the neighborhood talking about, and frankly, we'd love to hear your feedback. So we've got some questions that are out there tonight that we want to walk through, and then frankly, we probably will allow people just to kind of raise their hand and maybe take a few comments about that. So this is our meeting. The city knows that we are having this meeting. This is not a required city meeting, but I do know that Patrick Caldwell is going to try to join us this evening. So if there are some questions, we certainly can make sure that he can answer those, or those are provided directly to the city. But again, we wanted to provide this neighborhood update to Observatory Heights. I want to thank you all again for joining us. It's a great crowd. We're just going to jump right in. Our agenda that we're going to try to cover tonight, the introductions that we'll go through, the Westminster process, just an update on the process that we all are going through. I think you all know pretty well as well. And then we're going to talk about what is in the comprehensive plan and the PDP. I might ask all of our panelists to be sure you're muted. There's a little bit of noise there. And then we're going to talk about the conceptual neighborhood plan for the north side and south side of parcel B, the Observatory Heights parcel. And we'll talk about infrastructure improvements, that item we really want to talk about on LaPlace Court. And then we'll get to just a little brief discussion of conceptual architectural, and then get to that Q&A. So again, we want this to be much more of a discussion amongst our neighbors there in the neighborhood that really is impacted by this. So next slide, please. I think that takes us, there's the presenters. That's my winter look, apparently, with the beard. Bonnie, you're going to hear from Norris Design, our primary planner on this site, and then Todd Johnson is our project engineer. The three of us will take us through. We also have Jeff, Chad, and Mark available for any questions. They are here, but we're really here to walk through the material. Next slide, please. You all have been in many Zoom meetings, as we're all pretty familiar with the format these days in a Zoom webinar. If you would just use that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, you can type me a question at any time. We did have two questions that we received from the neighborhood or from neighbors earlier this week. We've already loaded those in, so we'll address those right away. I do want you to know that I don't think the chat function is working for the whole neighborhood, but maybe I'll check on that. So just use the Q&A button to ask us questions, and then maybe at the end I'll have you raise your hand and we can call directly on you. So next slide, please. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Bonnie. I'm going to come over, maybe ask a few clarifying questions from time to time, but Bonnie's going to give us an update and take it from here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcus. Hello, everyone. Bonnie Najalik with Norris Design. Some of you may have heard some of these first couple slides, but wanted to give an overall summary of where we are today, specifically focusing on parcel B today. So that's this piece here in orange, generally located south of 84th and west of Lowell Boulevard, both sides of Bradburn. Wanted to talk just a little bit about where we are in the city process. As many of you know, we worked through a comprehensive plan land use amendment last winter that was approved in February of 2020 for 3 of the parcels within Uplands. We are still working through the annexation and preliminary development plan for These parcels, there's a master official development plan that goes along with these that is specific to parcel A, so does not have any ruling over parcel B. We have done a pre-app for parcel PAB1, which is the north half of parcel B, and have submitted our first site-specific official development plan for parcel B. That was submitted in April of 2021. We'll have many more site-specific official development plans and final plats for the balance of the parcels as well. So where do we stand today on parcel B? Wanted to walk through the comprehensive plan and preliminary development plan. So again, this is the city's comprehensive plan land use map. We focus just on parcel B, the north and the south. Both parcels have a land use designation of R5, which allows up to 5 dwelling units per acre and allows uses such as single-family detached residences, single-family attached residences, duplexes, patio homes, townhomes, and condominiums. Going one step deeper from a detail perspective, we're working through the preliminary development plan, which is kind of the master plan and framework plan for all of the parcels. Working with city staff and some of the comments that we've heard from the neighborhood group over the last couple of years, we use the preliminary development plan to identify view corridors and public land dedication. So specific to parcel B, there's a view corridor that's identified in the comprehensive plan located south of Bradburn and west of Lowell Boulevard. So this 3.2 acre view corridor is formalized within the preliminary development plan. The preliminary development plan also identifies where we expect to have public land dedication. Those can also be considered public parks. So the plan requires a 2.3 acre public park on the north side of Bradburn Boulevard and a 3.76 acre public park on the south side of that view corridor. So that full kind of eastern boundary along Lowell Boulevard is set aside for public land and public parks. The preliminary development plan goes on to identify maximum unit counts and puts additional restrictions on the types of residential uses that are allowed. On the north half of the parcel, which is PAB1, we are limited to single-family attached residences, duplexes, and townhomes. We are maxed at 82 units on that north half, which is that 5 dwelling units per acre that's allowed within the comprehensive plan. On the south side of Bradburn, PAB2, we are maxing that unit count at 26 units. So that's a maximum density of 2 dwelling units per acre and is limited to single-family detached residences and patio homes. So as we transition to the lower density uses to the south and the west, we are doing the lower density uses, whereas the slightly higher density uses are adjacent to the existing multifamily to the north.
Bonnie, just one clarification on that. On this PDP that is being submitted and going through the process right now, we have provided more specificity, right? So we have taken out some of the uses, like for instance, on the south side, some of the types of residential units that could be built per the comp plan. We're removing some of those options. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. For example, condominiums would be allowed in the comp plan for both the parcel to the north and to the south. We are not allowing condominiums within these 2 parcels. Townhomes are also allowed in the southern parcel per the comprehensive plan, but we have removed that as an allowed use to better respect the density to the south.
Okay, great, thank you.
So moving into an additional level of detail, we have a conceptual neighborhood plan. So again, we looked at the context. We have a little bit higher density to our northeast, a little bit lower density to the west and to the south. We again overlaid that public land dedication or public parks and the view corridors to the site plan. So looking again at this eastern edge along Lowell Boulevard, these public lands, public parks, and view corridors are consistent with those requirements of the preliminary development plan. Your overall plan, just focusing on the north half for a few minutes, also includes over 45% open area and includes some parks within that community layout.
Bonnie, I may interrupt you. We've had a few folks just join us in the last few minutes. So folks, Bonnie Nizelik is our principal planner here on the site. She is walking us through kind of the conceptual site plans that are in the PDP, the submittal that's in front of the city right now, for parcel B, as we call it, and that's the Observatory Heights parcel, both the north and south side of Bradburn. So just giving you kind of a lay of the land, if you will. We're going to focus now on kind of the north side, which we call B1, and then we'll come to the south side, B2. But just pointing out again, along Lowell Boulevard here, the PLD, public land dedication, and the view corridors, those are forever protected. As was requested by the neighborhood, kind of along that Lowell Boulevard, that important view corridor, as we all know it there. So just kind of showing that again on these two sites. Overall parks and open space will be over 45%. So Bonnie, just jumping in, I think we just had some new folks, so I just wanted them to know where we're at.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, focusing on this north piece, which is the parcel that we have submitted a site-specific development plan on. Looking at the perimeter of this north half, we're showing a 45-foot setback to the west. We have a minimum 25-foot setback to the north, which along 84th, which we are meeting. We have a 35-foot setback along this adjacent property line that is adjacent to the multifamily to the northeast, and a 30-foot setback generally along Bradburn. In both kind of this setback location and this setback location, we are requesting a small exception. Those buildings are just this one building and this one building are slightly closer than that setback. So we're working with staff on those details. But the overall plan, again, just focusing on this north piece, we have 82 homes. They are generally accessed through a local road that connects to Bradburn Boulevard. It ends in a cul-de-sac, so that is, we have some fire access that gets up to 84th in case, of emergency, but no true local street connection to 84th, minimizing, that potential for cut-through traffic through this neighborhood. The homes are all alley loaded. They each have a 2-car garage. Most of the homes also have a driveway behind them. There are 33 surface parking spaces distributed throughout the neighborhood, and on-street parking is provided along this local street. So again, all the homes are duplex homes, so 2 homes per building. So for example, this little pod here, we have 2 buildings on either side of this street. We have homes fronting the public land dedication to the east, and are providing some trail corridors along Bradburn Drive, along the western setback, and then up around the detention pond. That maximum density is at 4.97, which meets the allowed 5 dwelling units per acre, and we're showing a maximum building height of 35 feet. Here we have 2 cross sections through this northern property. So this first, the top cross section is located right here, right adjacent to that public land dedication. So here you can see Bradburn Drive on the right hand of your screen, and then the site steps down with retaining walls. So those buildings are, their finished floor elevations are tucked below Bradburn. The second cross section is located more in the middle of the site where we have this open space area. Again, you can see Bradburn on the right side of your screen, and then a more gradual slope going down to the alleys and homes located to the northwest. Again, these are showing a maximum building height of 35 feet. We wanted to talk a little bit more about the view corridor that's located south of Bradburn. So these images, this slide and the next slide is really just focused on this north neighborhood, since that's the neighborhood that is under review for an official development plan. This orange circle at the bottom of your screen, this is showing a camera location for a view looking northwest across the site. So up on the upper right hand of the screen, that's what the view looks like today. And then the larger image on the lower left is showing the built condition. So if you're standing at this location within the view corridor, the southern end of that view corridor, you're standing at a higher elevation than the proposed homes. So the proposed homes are tucked below that elevation. One more view from that view corridor. Again, your camera location is along Lowell Boulevard, about midpoint through that view corridor. So again, at the top of your screen, that's what that view looks like today. And then this larger image on the left is what the view will look like once these duplexes are built. So you can see the tops of those duplexes are just peeking over the edge of that view, but that view is preserved, showing the mountains to the northwest. Moving down to the southern parcel, so PAB2, future development. We do not have a site-specific development plan submitted for this parcel. This plan here shows a maximum of 26 homes. These are all single-family homes. This is consistent with the maximum that's allowed within the preliminary development plan. So it meets that 2.0 dwelling units per acre with a maximum building height of 40 feet. We'll continue to work through the details of what this parcel looks like. This is just showing an example of what that maximum development potential could look like.
Bonnie, I know you're going to walk through this in a little more detail, but that south side, B2, as we have it labeled there, it will have to go through eventually a site-specific development plan, right? It'll have to go through that process. It's just that we're not working with a prospective builder at this time. Is that fair? That's why it's not as detailed.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Just wanted to show what that maximum unit count could look like. But all those details will need to be worked through when we do a site-specific development plan, including additional neighborhood meetings, a view corridor study, things like that.
But the land use data that you're showing there on the left-hand side of the screen, the density, the maximum of 26 units, that is included in the PDP. So the assurance we're giving kind of to the Observatory Heights neighborhood is it's 26 units maximum. That's the dwelling, and that's the height that is allowed for those type of homes. And it gets that single family and what other, I'm sorry, a single family only and one other type of residential structure.
As a patio home, so
patio
basically just single family homes.
Great.
So wanted to provide just kind of an evolution of where this plan has come over the last 3 years, following the input that we've received from all of you and working with city staff. I think the, kind of the biggest items that have changed are the addition of the public parks and view corridors along Lowell Boulevard. We originally had homes along, about half of that eastern edge. We heard the importance of that view corridor and the public parks in those locations. So have removed those homes and really just an overall reduction in density. We've removed quite a few units. We've eliminated the opportunities for cut through traffic and increased some of the setbacks, particularly along this western edge.
Okay, sorry, I'm typing a response to somebody. We're going to make a transition here. I would encourage everybody, we've got 10 or 12 questions that have been loaded up, which we appreciate. We'll get to those in a few minutes. We're now going to have Todd. Todd is going to come in and specifically address the infrastructure improvements. Again, this is actually specific to really Observatory Heights, these two parcels, but we thought it really warranted this meeting to kind of go through that. So Todd, take us the rest of the way here on the infrastructure improvements.
Evening, everyone. Todd Johnson with Terraforma Solutions. I'll go through some of the improvements on the infrastructure side that we're making to this area with this development. As Bonnie mentioned, a couple things on the site plan and feedback that we received not only from residents in the area, but also from the city is they did not want to encourage cut through traffic from 84th down to Bradburn. And so we eliminated that connection, put a cul-de-sac in, and this traffic flows back towards Bradburn. And also the PA B2 will flow to this intersection. So we just have one intersection in this area, and you probably saw multiple ones before. Bradburn will be expanded from what it is today of just a 2-lane roadway to provide bike lanes as well as tree lawns, sidewalks. And so we'd be making improvements there that are in standards with Westminster's minor collector. And that collector can not only handle the traffic that's there today, it can actually handle the additional traffic that we're going to add to it from B1 and B2. Our traffic analysis has showed that this still fits within that minor collector criteria, and the intersections that we have at Bradburn and also at Lowell still function within the city's criteria. Another element that has come up as part of our discussions with the neighbors is the LaPlace intersection, some concerns there about site distance and the city's implementation of some one-way traffic in this area. So what we've done is somewhat mimicked the conditions that are there today, but we tried to put in an access that was somewhat de-emphasized from what's out there today. So the first two properties that are on the eastern side still get the access like they can today. Those two properties can actually turn onto LaPlace and turn down that alley and get to their properties, and they can also flow back out of that area. So that condition is the same for those two properties. Anybody that's coming from the south and taking LaPlace can only go in the northbound to eastbound direction, as we show here. And then we'll be signing this area as well, very similar to what it was before. So we'll be de-emphasizing this intersection. Again, it's not on Bradburn anymore. It comes off of Bradburn from this entrance. It'll be posted as local access only, and also do not enter after you get past that second residence on the west. So those are some of the traffic improvements that we are making to this area. We feel that's a safer condition at that intersection, and the city is currently reviewing this proposal as well. Some of the other things that will happen with this development, there's storm drainage improvements that are occurring. So neighbors that are actually off to the north and to the west of both B1 and B2 will no longer see, some of the flooding that has maybe occurred in this area with uncontrolled drainage running across these two properties, potentially running into the western properties along B1. We focus that drainage and we control that drainage from the south all the way to the north, and we release it back out in storm systems that are in 84th. And then water and sanitary improvements are also being made within this development, and those have been incorporated into an overall master analysis that we worked with the city on, in making sure that we're not providing or incurring any impacts to current residents, but only improving conditions that are out there today. So those are the main infrastructure points that we have in the intersection improvements and the traffic improvements that we're making for this area.
Perfect. I know, Todd, we're going to come back to this in a little more detail. I just want to say, and Bonnie, I think, alluded to this earlier, this is a submittal that is before the city now, right? So we all know that the city will have comments, right, on all of these different elements, whether it be the roadway, the infrastructure, as we call it, the housing designs, the way they're situated, all of those things. That's part of the iterative back and forth process. So I just want to be very clear. This is not signed off and ready to go. This is kind of an update to all of you. And we actually think it's a pretty important update, particularly on LaPlace Court there, LaPlace, to really understand your comments about how that connection can maybe function better. Obviously, one thing that Todd showed there The reason we're moving that connection point a little bit more to the northeast there on Bradburn is to make sure it really enters at kind of a 90-degree angle. We all know the danger of that current intersection at Bradburn and LaPlace, and with the vegetation, pretty significant vegetation there, just to the west of that house, that property that's kind of a triangle shape. So this is really trying to make a safer passage for everybody there and create better visibility. So we'll come back to that in more detail, but I just wanted to do that. If we can go maybe to the next slide, Bonnie, if you can walk us through, I think there's maybe 2 quick slides on the conceptual architecture.
We actually have
Oh.
one quick slide, just kind of wrapping up that infrastructure summary. As you all saw, there's stormwater or detention ponds, both on the north portion along 84th and then just south of Bradburn Drive. So wanted to provide a couple of character images of what those treatments could look like. So more native landscaping, very soft. And I'm going to pause 1 second because there's vacuuming. Give me 1 second.
That's what office life is back. We're back in the office, Bonnie. Go ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. So just wanted to provide some examples of what those 2 areas could look like. And then conceptual architecture, we've walked through this with some of you in the past, but these are just a couple of examples of what those paired homes or duplexes on the north side of Bradburn could look like. We have, many different treatments, architectural treatments, and masonry materials to choose from. We'll continue to walk through the details of those and do additional neighborhood meetings to provide some additional examples. But again, they're all alley loaded, so those garages are tucked in the back, creating opportunities for nice entries and porches fronting the streets and the open spaces.
Terrific. All right, we're ready to go to question and answer here. We wanted to be very diligent and try to work through that material. Again, this is really for feedback from all of you. I will say I've read, we have 17 or 18 questions already, which we'll be happy to get to. Todd, we're going to have to show them in kind of a traffic simulation, if you will, about how traffic would end. I think there's a couple of comments already that we're going to increase traffic on the place court. And I want to be very clear and kind of show them that we are not making that a connection. We show that will have a do not enter, et cetera. So we don't anticipate there being additional traffic going on the place court, but we're going to get into that in a little more detail. So I'm going to just tee it off here, folks. We have plenty of time for questions. I'm going to start with this. So these were 2 questions that we received before the meeting. I saw reports that the lots on Bradburn would be sold. Is that pre or post Uplands development? So Bonnie, can you maybe answer that question about the development there on the north side?
Yeah, absolutely. So as many of you know, KB Home is under contract for the parcel. The Uplands team is currently listed as the applicant. KB Homes would be the home builder for the 82 lots shown on the north side of Bradburn.
Terrific. This is the first one we received as well on the infrastructure. One simple idea to solve the issue on LaPlace would be to make it dead end at Bradburn. Of course, we'd need to eliminate the one-ways south and north at 81st and LaPlace up on the hill. But other than that, that would be an easy and effective solution. So Todd, why are we, effectively, I think we are dead ending LaPlace, but maybe why does it connect over to that access road?
Again, we're really mimicking the existing conditions that are out there. So the city a while ago had actually set up this concept on the place where it's one way and it's kind of split in the middle. So you can only go to the north or to the south. And so again, that situation is being mimicked in our design, and we actually feel it's being de-emphasized more than what it is today because of this additional route that you have to take. But the one-way condition that was there, the do not enters, they all happened right where we have this 90-degree turn today, where we say closed access. And all that's happening there is it's just moving down to where the second home is. And those homes did receive two-way traffic before. They could go in and out, of course, of their area because it was the only way in and out. And so that condition does stay the same. As far as additional traffic coming through this area, getting to parcel 1 or 2, it would have to be coming through some other way to the south and actually navigate up through here. And we don't feel that that's actually the case. We think Lowell would be a much quicker route to come up to Bradburn and then get to this community. So we're not seeing that. The city's not seeing that as well in our discussions with them on changing the condition that's really out there today, or really adding any traffic to a place. If the city decides to come in and close this down or close this link off, that would have to be their decision. And again, this is in for review right now. And I think the city would appreciate any feedback that you could give them as well. For those that live out there on a daily basis. We work very closely with the city, but I think giving that feedback to the city would also help them in their analysis of this.
I was just going to interject, sorry, Marcus, that
go ahead, please.
The feedback from the residents, the existing infrastructure, there's a problem out there today, everyone. And so we're trying to help mitigate that problem and minimize the impact that we have to that problem. And so the feedback to the city is very important from the neighborhood. And so we are responding to the city's requests and the neighborhood's requests on making this better.
Terrific, thanks, Chad. The next question here is, how will you guarantee that KB Homes will honor your promises? I can answer that one pretty directly. Any builder, KB or any builder within the Uplands neighborhood will be bound by the city with recorded documents, enforceable by the city directly and independently. So I think, it's important to remember the reason we do site-specific process in the city of Westminster is to provide neighbors that certainty. So then the city actually enforces that those are actually built that way. So as far as honoring their promises, this is the process that the city has created. I think a very detailed process to make sure that that happens. So that is how that we can assure that KB Homes will honor those promises. Again, Bonnie, they go through a site-specific, it has to be approved, and then the city basically enforces that it's built that way.
Absolutely.
Great. We were asked to explain, and maybe Chad, if you can do this, explain the PLD on the north parcel. So as you can, Bonnie, if you don't mind going to a slide that shows that PLD on the north west corner there of Lowell and Bradburn.
Yep. So same thing for everyone's benefit. All of this information is not just promises made by a developer or through the process. This is these are things that are requirements that are incorporated into the documents, and we or any other subsequent developers are required to follow the documents that get approved. And so as Marcus said earlier about the KB information, the PLD, the view corridors, all of these things are items that get incorporated into the approval documents. The city council staff and everyone that's been reviewing them for years, and ultimately the approving body of the city council incorporates those into the documents. So the PLD, the view corridors, all of those things. The question was, explain the PLD on the north parcel, and then there was another question about just guaranteeing that this remains a view corridor for forever. And so again, those go into the documents. The PLD process, as we've said in many other neighborhood meetings, is really a process that is led by the city. And a couple comments about who requests that, and it's absolutely the city and the neighborhood feedback that says, okay, here's where we think the best place for open space in PLD is, and here's where we think the best place for view corridors are. That's how the documents got incorporated. The PLD to the north is really to incorporate a forever view over the top of that land from the view corridor to the south of Bradburn. And so that was the request of City Parks, Recs, and Libraries, and how these documents came to be. Same with the view corridor, and then same with the PLD, which is adjacent to the tank site on the south side of parcel B2.
Terrific. I think there was one, I'll just add to the next question was, or just a comment, the Lowell PLD was required per the city, not by the developer. I think Chad just detailed that really well. It's a very iterative process. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it was suggested by neighbors, which we think is a terrific suggestion. So I don't know if we'll even give the city full credit. We'll give the neighborhood full credit for suggesting it. I think the city fully acknowledges why that's an important corridor. And so you are right. That's a full process of why that Lowell corridor, the PLD, the view corridor, and then the northern PLD that Chad just mentioned. This is a little bit, Bonnie, back maybe a little bit to site plan specific. That's quite a mouthful. The question is, I noticed that the only exit from either parcel is onto Bradburn. Given that this is already used inappropriately as a cut through, so Bradburn is used as a cut through, I am concerned with the significant increase in traffic that is used to access Lowell and Oakwood. So Bonnie, why do we have only one access point from each of the neighborhoods to the north and south?
Primarily, the limited amount of access points is to minimize cut through traffic. So Bradburn, being a minor collector, is designed to accommodate a little bit more traffic than the local streets would. So trying to funnel traffic to those key streets instead of through the different neighborhoods onto 84th, places like that.
Terrific. And then Chad or Todd, and I'm not disagreeing with the person who asked the question, but you've done analysis on this traffic. Is this a significant increase? I mean, kind of talk about a little bit of how you look at the analysis of number of houses and that impact onto Bradburn itself.
Well, what we do is actually traffic counts first to understand what the existing traffic is out there. Does it still fall within the classifications that the city has designated? It still does. And the traffic patterns are also looked at. So we take counts at 84th Lowell, south of Lowell. We look at the traffic patterns in the area. We work again very closely with the city on understanding the traffic patterns that are in the area to make sure that when we're distributing traffic from a new development like this, it's proportionally being put back in that same concept, in that same really, existing background side, and then just adding on to that additional site generation that we're getting. And of course, there is traffic that goes to the south, but there's a lot of traffic actually that goes Lowell to 84th to get back to either the north or primarily to the south in this overall Uplands project is getting back to 36 is one of the main drivers. But again, the local traffic is added to the existing traffic that's out there. We make sure that that does not exceed the capacity of the roadway. Also look at safety. And so all those parameters have been evaluated for Bradburn, and we're still within the overall classification for the city. And I'd say we're below it. Lowell carries about 8,000 to 9,000 vehicles today, and Bradburn is obviously significantly lower than that. So that's another reason why we didn't push any other access points out onto Lowell. We keep it on Bradburn, and we focus this into one intersection really within this subdivision. So those are a couple of things that we look at from that perspective. And again, the city has the ultimate say on this. If they feel that, we're still too close to the criteria and we need to push to the next level, add a lane or something like that, those are all things that we work with them. In the previous studies that we've done for this area, we've generated higher traffic. We had more units on B1 when we did this initial traffic analysis, and that still did not trigger any additional lanes or any other improvements at Lowell and Bradburn in this area. So this submittal that you see in front of you, this B1, is actually less. It's about 200 trips actually less in a day than what we had initially projected. So things are still coming down from those master reports that we've done. So
a follow-up on that, I think the next question, and Morgan, thank you for these questions about this. for the homes that are, kind of on to the west there, that actually front on Bradburn, or their driveway is on Bradburn, they have to go out of there, obviously families, etc. Does this impact them? So I think one thing, first, you're doing a traffic impact study, right? You have to look at the impact of all of that. I think the other thing I would just say is actually, that turn lane, if you will, that enters both the north and south side. We actually think that the primary issue on Bradburn has been speed, right? That has been the biggest concern about Bradburn, and actually kind of pacing the traffic and slowing that traffic to have people coming in and out of that may actually have a good effect on the speed along Bradburn. So just Todd, any follow up on that for the homes that are further there to the west?
Again, related to the speed side of it, in our analysis with the city, one of the items that we do cover with them is they give us reports from the police department that state, we have speeding issues in these areas. And that's something that we then take into account, and we do some additional traffic calming potentially on those roadways. That is not an item that has come up. That doesn't mean that there's not speeding that does occur on Bradburn. We're not saying that doesn't happen. It's just not a prevalent issue that occurs in the area. And it's not something that the city has really pushed a solution for, adding something additional for something that's not really happening in that perspective. Again, from a roadway classification standpoint, this roadway is a minor collector. It can carry, about 7,000 vehicles a day. So it's close to Lowell as far as what it sees today or could see in the future from a maximum, but it's not projected to get there again. So yes, there'll be some additional traffic along the front of those houses, no different than any area that is developing to some extent. But the roadway, I think the key here is the roadway has been designed to handle not only existing traffic, but proposed or future traffic that still falls within that category.
Perfect. So thank you. Bonnie, do you mind going to the slide that shows the cross section? I get two questions that are related to this. First of all, the first one, statement, Bradburn sits level with the site, so why do you show the home so much lower? I just want to be clear that that's not an accurate statement. You can see pretty clear from this that Bradburn, of course, is level from a roadway, but you can see kind of the south side and north side here. And so Bonnie, then the question, which makes perfect sense, about what does it mean the finished floor space will be below Bradburn? How high will the finished height be over the road? If you can detail this a little bit to address those comments.
Yeah, sorry, I should have used a more clear term. So the finished floor being basically the entry point where the building meets the ground. That would be your finished floor elevation. So that maximum building height of 35 feet. When we do our next neighborhood meeting, we will be required to do a neighborhood meeting with the city with the site-specific official development plan. And we can make sure to provide a little bit more specifics on those elevation changes. But just kind of eyeballing it roughly, we have this 5510 contour line, which is approximately at Bradburn, maybe a little bit below it. And then those building heights are below that 5530 contour line. So you can kind of see Bradburn hits maybe, near the middle of those homes.
Yeah, so again, I think Bradburn, as you see on the right of your screen for everybody, of course, Bradburn is basically level. That's a completely accurate statement who asked that question. But then really to the northwest of this site, it falls very substantially. So we're talking about the height of those homes and the finished elevation really on that northwest side, just to make sure that we're being accurate there. Great. Next question is a question for Patrick. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us on this non-city required meeting. We appreciate it. But it was a question for you. Will the city complete a sidewalk on Lowell that meets ADA standards? So again, will a sidewalk be required on Lowell that meets ADA standards?
Yes, it will. And that it will show in the final version of the ODP, and it will also be on the construction documents. So yes.
Thank you. Let's see here. I just lost my place, which happens from time to time. This is a great question. So Bonnie, this is because of my interruption of you that this question happened. So my apologies. When I talked a little bit about the south side of Bradburn, that it's not as site specific, right? Because we're not working with the builder. The question then was, though on the south side, will the two PLDs and the view corridor be dedicated as part of the North B1 site specific plan, so that the community knows that it doesn't end up, that if we don't end up being the developer, the land will still be preserved. So how do we make sure, and in what order those two PLDs in the view corridor, when are they dedicated so the community has that assurance?
We need to continue working with staff on the specifics of when those dedications are required. The site-specific development plan for the north side includes that public land dedication piece on the north side. As of today, the two parcels on the south, the view corridor and the park to the very south, are not part of that first site-specific development plan, but the preliminary development plan does require a 3.2 acre view corridor at this location and the 3.76 public park at the southern location. So any future site-specific development plan for B2 would be evaluated against that preliminary development plan and would need to meet those requirements.
Terrific. Thanks, Dino, for that question. Hopefully we answered it. So Amy, you've got the next comment here, and I think this is responding again to something we said. It says, I don't think that will eliminate cut-through traffic by the new residents in your parcel. It's a shorter drive from Bradburn, right? Access to a place is a residential street, and that should be completely eliminated either through a gate or making a dead end at Bradburn or some other solution. I think that's a terrific comment for the city. We're going to pass on all of these comments. But Todd, maybe if you can just talk about that a little bit. The idea here is to either dead end the place, right? Or not allow that access that goes in front of the two homes on the south side there, just, you know, south of the roadway. So thoughts on that and kind of the evaluation there.
Well, I think from what we've heard from one of the residents out there on this is they did not want to see their access go away or the two-way function go away. So we would still have to provide something to them. If the comment is, hey, let's dead end the place at Bradburn and don't make the connection, you know, from that second house over. Again, that really has to be taken to the city, and then also fire has to look at these elements as well, because you're really looking for 2 points of access. You're looking for you know, life safety to be able to get to locations. So you know, that one I would say is a little bit out of our control. We can definitely work with the city to provide the solutions, but an overall dead end or an overall severing of a roadway, that really needs to be a city decision. So
that's great. Can you actually, Bonnie, go one slide deeper? I think shows those red lines, if I'm right. No, maybe they've gone away. There you go. I just want to point that out, that red bar, if you will, that kind of is where signage, additional signage will be there about, that's the end of the two-way street there. So Amy, that may not be enough of a solution as Todd just said, but I want to be clear that we are demarking that, making it, again, that's kind of the situation that's there today, but we'll pass that along to the city. Is that need to be more than just that signage that we're providing there? Okay, the question of follow-up really is, our traffic is going to increase traffic on the place unless you close it off. So that's a fair comment. Can the full movement intersection on Bradburn become a roundabout to slow the high-speed drag racing? So right there, Todd, have we ever looked at a roundabout in that section right there?
again, we worked with the city on this one, and that was not a solution that we really had saw as a remedy for this area. And again, we're not discounting that there's probably not people that do speed in this area. The city is just not seeing it. We did not see it in any analysis or observations that we have done as well. And so that is not a solution that the city has brought to the forefront. That doesn't mean that it won't happen in our initial review with the city and their analysis through this area again, and maybe some of this additional feedback from the residents. It's just not a solution that has really been brought forward from the city right now.
And I would just add to that, Marcus and Todd, that we don't make those decisions. That's a city decision. The city kind of steers us in the direction of the right solution for the city, their long-term ownership and maintenance of a roundabout or an intersection of any kind. And so we really follow the city's lead on that. We provide the data from the traffic reports that follow their code, and we react accordingly. So it's not like we're telling them what we will or won't do. It's the city's call on that.
Terrific. This is a question that I kind of said, Todd, can you give us a simulation of what traffic would look like? It looks a little confusing. I'm going to go ahead and say it is already a little confusing. I think we're, that's probably the issue here that we're all understanding. So Todd, the arrows kind of speak for themselves, but maybe kind of walk through it a little bit. If you're pulling into the southern B2 parcel, just walk us through the traffic flow.
Yeah, and hopefully I can draw on this, Bonnie. So if you are, and I live in the first two residents here, I can drive in and pull into my driveways. I can also, leave from this area and get back out. And again, then if I'm coming down Laplace, like again, Laplace is today, you can only go in this direction. You make this turn and come back through. But again, this line right here is depicting a do not enter area, the same as it's posted right here today at this location. And so all we've really done is just kind of rotated this situation. We've taken away again this access coming out on this curve or this corner right here, which is somewhat unsafe for part of this side for sure, and then this side as well. So again, we're mimicking that situation, and that was a solution that we had talked about with the residents down here, and we thought that might be the best solution for this area. And again, instead of just coming down Bradburn or coming back out of here and trying to cut through, you actually have to come back through these areas. And I know posting doesn't do everything all the time, but it's going to probably cut down on those people that are trying to come through here and maybe do get lost when we start to post these things as no outlets and also local traffic and so forth.
Next question is, I think Chad can answer this, or Todd. What we're proposing, are we giving folks swamps, or are we preventing floods? What is the answer there?
Yeah, I'll just take the first stab at it. Like the detention ponds are for a storm event and to detain those storm events temporarily. And then Todd, I'd let you speak to how long those flows are there, but they hold a big storm event. So if there's a bunch of runoff that comes down a parcel, they go into the pond, so they're not released all at once and they're released over time. We're not creating swamps. These are normally dry ponds. And Todd, technically speaking, the water disperses from these in 48 hours, or you tell me.
Yeah, anywhere between 48 and 72 hours, the water has to get out of them. It's for mosquito control, but it's also to meet state standards on releasing water in a timely manner. So again, these are detention mainly facilities. They're slowing down the water. They're mitigating the development flows, and they're releasing these flows back in a historic manner, but they're not releasing them back in the historic path. So I think that's an important point here, because this drainage really runs right back to the west. And we've heard that this house particular, that there's really no curb here. There's nothing that prevents drainage to run this way. And so these improvements that we're making will substantially improve this drainage condition here, because this development, this street will actually be picked up into this pond, and then it will be released back out across the roadway, and the drainage path takes it back to the north and keeps it from actually running in this direction back to the west into those homes. So it should greatly improve any runoff that ever came through these areas and maybe flooded them, by redirecting that flow in capturing that developed flow as well, and then also treating that flow where it was not getting treated at all before.
Terrific. So a substantial improvement. Next question is on the duplex design, Bonnie, and I know it's conceptual, but going through that, what is the distance from the door to the sidewalk? And you may have to kind of just give us a couple of examples of that.
Yes, this is a good question. When we do our next neighborhood meeting, we can be sure to pull up the lot typicals. But in general, I believe we have a minimum of 10 feet from the property line to the kind of primary living area of the home, and a minimum of 5 feet to the porch of the home. So the sidewalk in front of that lot might be right on that lot edge. You can see in many of these examples, or it might be a little further off in some cases, but we'll be sure to provide kind of a lot typical and walk through those details with our next neighborhood meeting.
Terrific. This is a comment, and Amy, thank you. The do not enter will be ignored just as one-way signs are ignored now. We will certainly pass that along. Again, I think we're proposing that and trying to get feedback, and we appreciate that feedback about kind of how it's treated today, right, and what people do with that. So we'll certainly pass that on. How will the emergency access vehicles, how will they access LaPlace Court, Todd? Will there be any change on that? Does that allow for emergency access? What happens there?
Yeah, there's no change in how they can operate today. They would have, frankly, they can go the wrong way on these streets. They can come from the other direction. That will not change with the proposal that we have. They can come down LaPlace. They can actually come off of Bradburn and get into this area, and then go south on LaPlace as well. So that's the same condition for emergency vehicles.
Great. Okay. This question was: we are concerned about the Allen's Ditch wilderness. How would the construction affect that protected area? Anybody got an answer for that?
We may have to just dig into that one a little bit more.
Todd, do you know where the Allen's Ditch is exactly?
I don't know if they're talking about the area that's to the west on 84. If they could maybe clarify their question for us. Sometimes these drainage areas are called something different to us. But if they're talking about the area that's just to the west of 84th and Circle in that potential ditch area, again, we would be improving conditions, because right now this is uncontrolled drainage that comes off this field. It also comes off of uncontrolled, and we regulate all that flow down to something that's historic, or in even a couple cases less than historic. So we would be improving conditions if that's the area that is being talked about.
Great. Jamie, if you don't mind clarifying that, but I think we can answer that one. This was another comment really about the traffic in the LaPlace Court, that we're creating impediments to cut through in our own parcels B1 and B2. Let's really try to get this right. There's one chance to get it right. Exactly why we are having this meeting. We couldn't agree more with you. There's one chance to get it right, and all the chances, I guess, back and forth with the city to really get this feedback. So thank you. This is important feedback. That's why we wanted to have this discussion, to hear from all of you. I do want to say the reason that suggested that we're creating impediments to not allow cut through our parcels is because we were specifically asked, I'll look at B1 in particular, not to have a roadway go to 84th, because that would be a cut through that would impact Shaw Heights. So I just want to say that's actually being done for the neighbors to the north. It doesn't really have to do with our parcel. It's more about that connection point. So we're trying to protect that. But Amy, very good comment, and I know the city will hear that. Let's see. We are working hard. Will construction, this is a very specific construction question. Will it take place on the weekends, Chad? I'm sure there are regulated hours by the city, but do you know if maybe Saturday construction is allowed?
Yeah, we, in a master plan community, we always direct the builders to follow the city's rules around noise violations and work hours. And so I don't know exactly what they are off the top of my head today, Marcus, but we will direct all builders, and the city's building permits that they issue will require the builders to follow the city's rules there.
Great. There was a question, I'm sorry, I just dismissed it. It was a specific question about how do residents, all of you attending this meeting, how do you give responses to the city? We're going to put Patrick, I hate to do it, but we're going to put Patrick's email in the chat function. So Bonnie, if you think of that, would you just add that to the chat? People are asking how to provide that email to the city. So if people want to make comments, we'll give you the planner for this project, Patrick Caldwell, who was nice enough to join us for this meeting. Okay, let's see. How would the PLD and VC view corridor look different? What is the difference of the two, Bonnie? So maybe just that's for any area. PLD, what's different about that from the view corridor area?
Good question. The view corridor is really focused on preserving those views. So all three of these parcels, let me get to one of those maps that shows the difference, will all be dedicated to the city. The city will own and maintain each of these three parcels. The city will lead the design efforts with public outreach for what improvements may exist in any of these three parcels, but the view corridor will be more sensitively designed to be limited with structures or any kind of vertical elements that may restrict what those views could look like.
Terrific. This is Todd or Chad. What are you going to do with 82nd Avenue? Everybody knows 82nd is that spur that goes immediately kind of west of the intersection there of LaPlace and Bradburn. What are the plans? Will that be fully improved? Does it become city right away? What is the plan for that?
Well, 82nd does not, as you see in this plan, does not connect into our development any longer into B2.
Are you talking about the west side though, Marcus? Is this question on the west side of our parcel or the east side?
I would say, I'm sorry, I think, Todd, it's from the corner here on the west side of B2, so that little spur there.
So say that one again then, Marcus. What will happen with 82nd?
Yeah, what are we going to do with the 82nd? And I think that's just, you know, we're showing it right there, but can you talk about what we'll do with 82nd there?
On the west side, Marcus, or the east side? Because the west side is really kind of aligned with LaPlace, and the east side is east of Lowell.
Right, so the west side.
Yeah, I think it's really just part of this LaPlace solution that we have. So it's not actually, we're not proposing a full roadway width in here as well to try to calm traffic or to try to, you know, really downplay this is a through street. So that is not similar to 84th. It's not similar to, or I'm sorry, 82nd to the east. And it's not similar to anything that's in the subdivision. This is something that's probably about 24 feet, maybe a little wider than that. We're still working through some details on that side as well. But that's what we're proposing right now.
Yeah, and we, to the gentleman who asked that question, we'd love to hear your comments in particular, to be honest. Yeah, we're not showing that as a full roadway length. I'm going to use the term kind of, we're trying to treat that as it is. It'll be paved, obviously, but more of a drive aisle for the two homes that are there, and really for emergency vehicles. So that's our current plans on 82nd. Again, you know, pending the comments from all of you and the city. Are we required, is Uplands required the 12 acres per 1,000 people of PLD, or how did the city make the determination on the PLD dedication?
Yeah, I can start that one. I mean, we've been pretty clear. There's been a number of neighborhood meetings about this issue. We follow the city's direction on this one. The city staff over the course of the last 2 years has been very clear that Uplands, you know, should at least include 15% plus or minus of public land dedication. They asked for the specific locations. We worked with a number of stakeholder groups, schools, adjacencies, existing infrastructure, connectivity, park deficiencies. And the determination of this land plan for this parcel and the greater portion of the uplands was determined based upon that input. And then the city, obviously per their code, can require 100% land, 100% cash in lieu, or any combination thereof in between, as they've answered many times. So we ended up with this 40+ acres that we're dedicating, which is exceeding their 15% goal. And then the cash in lieu that this project will provide is, again, upwards of $5 to $8 million based upon the population generation of the project. And so we meet and exceed their requirements. And we've worked with Parks, Recs, and Libraries over the past 2 years to dial in these parks accessibility for the whole public. And we will keep moving forward with the process at hand. The cash in lieu will help the greater city needs in terms of existing improvements that are on the priority list, and hopefully at some point the uplands programming and development of the open space projects, parks. The projects that are contemplated to be PLD are only a portion of the parks, the public parks that will be included in uplands. And as Bonnie can point out, all of the site-specific development plans will have pocket parks and what the city calls private parks, in addition to the public land dedication, which will be open to the public, even though they're called private parks. They're just not dedicated to the city. So hopefully that answered that question, Marcus.
Perfect. Yep, that did great. Is Lowell going to be expanded to 2 lanes each way versus its current 1 lane each way? Concerned about the increase in traffic. So Todd, just the analysis of Lowell and what the city has asked for those improvements.
At 84th, we will have an additional turn lane. Right now, again, the Lowell can handle the traffic that's there, and also the projected traffic in this area that we're going to generate in the growth. But we are formalizing Lowell through this area, and again, we're providing safety improvements. So there was a question earlier about a sidewalk. There's sidewalks really that go from 84th down through our property frontage, or down to roughly 82nd. They make connections. We formalize bike lanes along this corridor, as well as formalize any deficiencies within the travel lanes. And also, if there's any turn pockets that are needed, not only for this piece, but to the north as well, those are accommodated in our design.
Terrific. Bonnie, if you can just show, looking at this image here, are there 2 lots or 4 lots on each side of the street? So I think that's showing, just show us the lot size, and is that a duplex in each one of those, or walk us through that?
Yes, no, good question. Happy to further explain that. So just focusing on this, can you guys see my little cursor mouse?
Yes.
Okay. So just focusing on this little area, you can see 4 lots on the south side of the alley. So these 4 lots, you will see 2 structures. So one structure would cover the 2 western lots, and one structure would cover the 2 eastern lots. That central lot line divides each duplex into 2 units. So 4 units within 2 structures within this location right here.
Terrific. So those are 4 units is the key answer there. So just as it's shown. Okay, great.
Yeah, buildings 4 units.
Todd, when we did the traffic counts, some people saw the counters during COVID, which, as we all know, was all of last year, or maybe still continuing. What dates were those conducted on, and are those updated post-pandemic? Like, how's the analysis work on that?
Our counts are actually done before COVID, and so and they get adjusted for every year out from that initial. And then if they need to be updated, we also do that. If there was any counters out there during COVID, that was possibly the city doing some counts or something going on, but our counts were done before. And then, our projected build out, initial build out year is in the 22-23 timeframe. So all of the counts for not only background traffic that's out there, but any other developments that are coming in besides ours, we adjust those for, increase in traffic of sometimes 1% to 2%. And those are standards per CDOT. And we also work with the city on what that increase in traffic should look like.
Okay, terrific. There's already approximately 6,100 cars a day on Lowell. Will more cars from your site help, or what does that add? I think we've, again, Todd, that's something that you look at capacity. The city tells us kind of the solutions, but again, back to Lowell, existing 6,100 cars, and then the counts from our development. Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, we've said this a number of times. We've gotten this question a lot on the infrastructure. We follow the city's rules on traffic reporting and research and guidelines and development. We just like Lowell sits today, it was developed based upon the city's criteria and engineering criteria. So we follow those same rules to understand and minimize and adjust the existing infrastructure for our impacts on the city's existing infrastructure, whether it's Lowell, an intersection, federal, the intersection at 36th and federal. So there's a comprehensive traffic study. It follows the rules. We do all of this. We are proposing more above and beyond the level of improvements to Lowell Boulevard in terms of safety improvements to not only mitigate the impacts of our project, but to improve an existing deficiency with driveways backing out onto a busy street. And so we're providing bike lanes and safety view corridors and other things that improve that. So the question, we've gotten this a ton, and I just recognize that just like me, not everyone on the call here is a transportation expert, but we have a team of experts. The city has a team of experts that review this type of thing in any development process. So hopefully that helps, again, reiterate.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I know the gentleman asking that question, I believe, lives on Lowell. So again, we'll stand by those improvements on the west or the east side of Lowell, how important that is for Shaw Heights, and really to make this a much better roadway than exists today. So we certainly think that is a good improvement. Are there any drainage ditches shown on your map? So again, Todd, that might be some of the outside area drainage ditches, but do we look at that and take that into account on our drainage analysis?
Yeah, we not only look at what is going to be generated on our site, but anything that is coming from other areas that come onto our site. So if there's drainage ditches that are along the roadways, those actually get formalized in the storm sewer systems, typically because of the improvements that we're doing. But we're looking at we're having a comprehensive drainage analysis in every process that we're going through here in looking at drainage. So I think that has been handled, and we haven't seen any major comments come back as well from the city that anything's being missed. So
the next one is just part of the beauty of these digital or virtual meetings. It's hard to know. People sometimes ask a question based on a comment that somebody makes. So one gentleman just said, how can you say the speed is on Bradburn is an issue? And then the very next comment was that people drag race on that street. So I'm just going to let the next comment kind of answer that. I'm sorry, I don't know what the first question was referring to, but we know that speed is an issue on Bradburn. We've certainly been told that. And I think, Eric, your comment that people drag race on that street, certainly aware of that. And I think that idea of, life on the street is going to change that. The idea that there is nothing there on this stretch that we're looking at on the screen in front of us certainly makes that a lot more inviting for speed. So we would concur that, we want to see activities that really slow down that traffic that's there. This gentleman, this person made a suggestion that a speed bump be put in just after the new development and before the houses on Bradburn to slow traffic. We'd probably like that speed bump, but Chad, I don't know if they're legal.
Well, we're all supportive of speed bumps, and sometimes they are called jumps. But the city like a lot of municipalities, doesn't like speed bumps because they become a snow removal issue, or they become a maintenance issue. Then somebody loses control because they can't see it in the dark. And so we're supportive of all traffic calming methods. And I think there are better means and methods today, but we count on the city traffic engineering department and then our engineering experts to decide how best to calm traffic. Speed bumps are great in some areas and not great in others. So we don't make that decision ourselves, frankly.
Perfect. We've got, folks, it's about 8:15. I'm going to say that we're doing great, and we've got about 15 more minutes here to get through the questions. I know we started this meeting a little late in the evening, so we're going to work through that. So just encouraging our panelists. Who is paying for the sidewalk on Lowell?
I'll reiterate this again. We've said it every neighborhood meeting we've had. Uplands pays its own way. We're not asking the city to build anything. We're not asking for existing neighbors or neighborhoods to build anything. Any improvements that are shown in our PDP, our master ODP, or any other future planning documents are the responsibility of the Uplands development, 100%. And so it'll be a combination down to the nuts and bolts side. It'll be a combination of the builders that actually are building the infrastructure and or the master developer, which is the Uplands group.
The next question was, were you trying to hide this meeting from others if someone from the city is on? So I'm just going to address that. You know, this is a meeting that we wanted to do specific for Observatory Heights to really get feedback from them. These are very localized, if you will, streets, particularly the LaPlace Court discussion is really something that is very unique to Parcel B. So we think it's wholly appropriate to meet with different neighborhoods to talk about different parcels, particularly Parcel B here and this impact. So we actually went out of our way to make sure it wasn't hidden from anybody. That's why we invited the city so that they knew the meeting was occurring and that we would put it on YouTube. So I think just the opposite of that, we want to have that, but I think it's very important to try to hear direct feedback from adjacent neighbors. Next question was, I said that they're in the project to the end. Okay, so Oriad has said that you are in the project to the end. Why are they selling parcels to a builder? So Chad, maybe just the process of kind of the master planner, developer, and then working with builders.
Yep, our representation is that, and has been from day one, as the master developer. Master developers put together the entitlements, work with the city on the major infrastructure that's required. We work through a long, tedious process of, sorry, my son's walking in to say goodnight. Buddy, you're on public TV. And so we as the master developer, really tee up the development for effort to partner with home builders who build the ultimate homes that are sold to third-party home buyers. And so when we say we're in for the long haul, we are in for the long haul as the master developer. We're programming the private space, we're putting the list of builders together, we're maintaining the integrity of the design guidelines and the city's vision and our vision for Uplands. We are, at the end of the day, not a home builder.
Great. That is consistent. Who will be paying for drainage upgrade? We will be paying for drainage upgrade, just like any other infrastructure, all the questions that we answered earlier along the same line. What time frame are you looking at, Chad, for the development starting?
You know, we're right in the middle of the city's approval process, and I've also addressed the issue in the room about the mayor's resignation last night. I mean, the city has a business as usual attitude. We've talked to them about whether recall elections happen or whether you know, this out of the blue resignation happens. We don't have any involvement in that, but we are going through the city's process. We respect that process. We honor that process, and we're in the middle of that. And that's not going to change whether it's this election, this mayor, the next mayor, future city council members, et cetera. So the long answer short, we're working through the process with the city per the code and the requirements of the city, no different than we have been for the last couple of years, and we're looking forward to public hearings on the PDP MODP this summer, and then we'll take the next steps from there.
Great. Another follow-up, same gentleman here asking a number of questions about, you said the ditch would be improved. How would the oil from cars and trash be stopped from flowing into the ditch? So maybe talk about that, Todd. That's a pretty important step that we're actually going to be providing on the site.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, all of our drainage gets routed through detention facilities and water quality facilities. So the ponds that you see here, anything that's running off the streets that gets to those ponds actually gets treated. The water is held for a certain period of time to help those pollutants drop out, and then it's released. So we're really releasing clean water and frankly cleaner than anything that's being released out of any of the adjacent subdivisions today, because they do not have any storm drainage features like we have to design these days. So we're again improving conditions for the environment with this development.
Great. This is a question, or it's really a comment about Lowell again. When we say it can handle more traffic, the gentleman suggests that maybe we're being a little tone deaf. I just want to be sure that is something that we're saying from a kind of professional and technical standpoint of when you do the traffic study, what the road capacity is, and basically also what the city experts tell you it can handle. Is that right? We don't mean that in just what it is. It's more about an analysis that's completed by the city.
That's correct. That's correct. There's a perception on traffic, of course, that doesn't align a lot of times with what the criteria is, but we're falling into, again, those standards. And what I would say is this project, not only just on B, but through the entire project, is making some very large or significant safety improvements, which are key as well, not just on traffic flow, but on these sidewalk connections that we're talking about. We're improving intersection capacity and upgrading signals. So again, this project, as we've mentioned a couple times, is really a catalyst for safety and for improving capacity on these roadways.
Great. I might lead into this last, or not last comment, but a comment that's made that, again, we want to host these meetings so we can share the comments with the city, so we can facilitate additional dialogue with all of you. We don't know if we're right, what we're proposing here about LaPlace and so forth. So that's why we wanted this comment. The comment here is change is difficult and you folks are doing a nice job. I'm not 100% on board, obviously, but want you all to know that your efforts and communication are appreciated. We appreciate that. Frankly, it's our job. We need to hear these comments, good and bad, about how to make this plan better. I will say, I know it was a quick slide that Bonnie put up, but maybe Bonnie, if you can just show where we started this discussion on Observatory Heights for parcel B. I can just tell you, you all have made it a ton better and the city has made it a ton better. So I think these are, you can see the difference in how we're getting there. Of course, there's things we got to keep working through, but we appreciate that we're trying to learn what's the best way to do some of these items. A couple more questions, folks. We are getting close. It's 8:23. My questions keep disappearing on me, so I know somebody is answering them. So just some of you may be getting a written answer on a few questions. If we answer it directly, it's probably a very specific technical question, so you get that response directly back to you. So just know, if everybody would look at the bottom of your screen, sometimes we are answering a question directly back to you if it's pretty technical. See, I'm going to go back down here to the bottom. Just give me one moment. Dino, I'm going to give you just a heads up. You had raised your hand earlier. So Dino, we're going to promote you to ask that question that you had if we didn't ever already call on it. So Dino, if you're ready, we're going to promote you and you can ask that question. And Dino,
if you're trying to talk, Dino, you might be muted.
Jasper, if you can make sure. Yeah, I'm seeing you as muted still, Dino, but maybe try. If you're there, if you're not there, we'll bring you back in just a minute. So folks, I'm going to look for some additional questions here. Jeff or Chad or Todd, do you see any questions that we haven't answered? Okay. Here's one. What improvements will be done on the stretch of Bradburn that is not adjacent to the development? Will the street narrow directly in front of those homes that face Bradburn? So just that whole stretch, if you will, there from Lowell down to what is LaPlace today. Are there other improvements that we're making along Lowell or along Bradburn?
Nothing in addition to what we may have mentioned, but let me just reiterate them again, is those 2 lanes that are out there today, we improve them to make sure that they're the proper width. We add bike lanes on both sides of that roadway. We add curb and gutter, tree lawns, and sidewalks. And that goes from Lowell all the way to the end of this property in LaPlace, and then it transitions back to the existing residence or the existing cross section that's out there today, back to the west.
Okay, and I think that was actually the person was asking, there to the west, do we continue those improvements, or they kind of end roughly at LaPlace Court?
Yeah, they're roughly in there.
Great. Let's see. Another comment about, again, just if LaPlace, if that's a dead end, we won't need the police resources to kind of enforce the signage and all of that. So I get the comment that it's the Uplands residents that might be the additional traffic, or right, the concern on that. So we understand that comment. We're going to certainly note that as well. I'm looking through here, folks. I think we're really working through the questions. It looks like somebody is typing one real quick. Section available.
Marcus, we've gotten a couple questions again from familiar folks about the Metro District, and so I would just reiterate that we're, following the city's procedure on that and the process that the city code requires for that, and so I guess that's all I can say at this point, is that we're following the city's lead on that process in their code.
Okay, terrific. That's great. So folks, I think I am.
I have a technical question, Marcus. I apologize.
No problem.
I think that we had a question just pop up just a moment ago that can the participants see the answered section of the questions? I think someone's having trouble seeing those.
Yeah. So Bonnie, can you actually? So for instance, if Eric asks a direct question and says, "Here's his question: the PLD is on a hill. That's why you can't put houses on it." And so then we wrote him an answer about that PLD there at 3.76 acres, that's a very flat area on the top of that hill, right? And the reason that's PLD, the reason the city is protecting that is because that's where folks enjoy the sunset, right? And park area below the hill as well. So when we reply to that, is that going directly to Eric, or is that being shown to everyone?
They should be going directly to everyone, as long as the person answering that question is not checking the send privately box, which I don't believe anyone is doing that.
Great. Okay.
So I believe all residents, or I'm sorry, all participants can see the answered section.
That's right.
And so peruse those if you're curious about where all our those questions went. They're in the answered section. That was it, Marcus. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And the only thing I'll say tonight is that this is a result of your voice about things like LaPlace and that Sunset Hill and the Grove and things like that. So we're back here because we've tried to find some solutions to some problems that you've brought to us. So appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Marcus. We'll get off.
You got it. Folks, I don't see any other unanswered questions. I do want to say we've lost about 75% of our audience. So I know we're kind of working through it. I just want to be sure that we will turn this information over. We will do a YouTube record. We've done a recording of this meeting and we'll post that. So any of your neighbors that want to watch this meeting, we'd be happy to have them view it, kind of go through it. So just want you to know that we always try to make that available. We'll do that. So I'm going to just say again how much we appreciate your invaluable feedback on these proposals, what we're proposing there. I think we're making a lot of progress. with Observatory Heights and really the way it relates to your existing neighborhood. So I know it's late. I want to thank you all. We will get back to everybody. This is just another step in the process. As Bonnie said, there are more required city meetings that we'll go through, and we'll certainly stay up to date with everybody. So I want to thank you very much. I want to wish you a good night, and thanks, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.